So the last set of special senses that we look at is the senses that help in smell and taste. Now the chemoreceptors for both senses complement each other because olfaction, which means smell, and taste, which means gustation, is related to each other. Have you ever had a cold and your food tastes funny? This is because when your nasal cavity is stuck with mucus, we lose our ability to smell, which affects what we taste. So there are chemoreceptors that are picked up by the receptors of the tongue that help us sense the taste. But for these chemoreceptors to help us taste the food, we should be able to tell the smell because olfaction and gustation are related to each other. So the olfactory receptors are present in the roof of the nasal cavity. So right above the hard palate, the nasal cavity is present, and the olfactory receptors just hang down the roof of the cranium. We call them olfactory nerves, and these olfactory nerves detect the chemical signals in the smell of the food. And once the chemical signals are detected, we are able to tell the taste. The impulses that are detected by the olfactory nerves is transmitted to the olfactory filaments via cranial nerve number 1, and the smells are interpreted in the olfactory cortex of the brain. So this picture over here shows the roof of the nasal cavity. Right over here is the hard palate, and if you can observe these little yellow structures that hang down the roof of the nasal cavity, these are olfactory nerves, and this region is present right behind the ethmoid, right above the ethmoid bone of the skull, and this is called the cribriform plate that has the olfactory nerves. So the olfactory hairs that look like cilia, they are present right over here under the cribriform plate, and these are olfactory receptor cells that pick up the signal and transmit the signal to the parts of the brain to detect smell. Now the next sense of special sense is the taste buds or the tongue. So the tongue is a funny looking organ that helps with speech and digestion, and it is covered in structures known as papillae. Papillae are the little bumps that are present on the tongue. So these receptors have the ability to distinguish what we perceive as taste, and the distribution of these taste buds is not equally located everywhere on the tongue. Now, if you look at the location of the taste buds, they are present most on the tongue, and they're also present in the soft palate, which is the region almost close to your throat, and then the superior part of the pharynx and the cheek as well. So all of these locations have taste buds. Now the tongue is covered with projections known as papillae. We have the fungiform papillae, filiform papillae, and the velar papillae. So if you take a closer look at the tongue, right over here is the epiglottis. Epiglottis is a flap that closes the trachea and prevents food from entering the trachea. So when we swallow food, the epiglottis just shuts close the air pipe basically, and it allows the food or forces food to go down the esophagus, which is the food pipe. And right over here you see the fungiform papillae. Right along the corner you see the foliate papillae, and right over here you see the lingual tonsil and the palatine tonsil. So if you take a look at the taste buds, the taste buds are actually not really located on the tongue, but they are located deeper within the tongue. So every time we drink something hot, we say, oh, we burnt our taste bud. Really, but you're not burning the taste bud because they are located deeper in the tongue. We just burn the valate papillae that cover the tongue. Now, these cells that pick up taste are called gustatory cells containing taste receptors. So these cells contain long structures known as microvilli, and they protrude through the taste pores. And these hairs are stimulated by the chemicals in the food that are dissolved in saliva with the food we eat. So right over here you see gustatory hairs emerging from a taste pore. This is the surface of a tongue, and its whole structure is the taste bud, and right under the taste bud there are sensory nerve receptors. But the tongue, mind it, is covered with papillae. So you don't really burn the taste bud itself, you just burn the papillae that protects the tongue. So impulses are carried to the gustatory complex by several different cranial nerves because taste buds are present in different areas on the tongue. So the receptors that are involved are the cranial nerve number 7, which is the facial nerve. Then you have the glossopharyngeal nerve, which is nerve number 9, and then the vagus nerve, which is cranial nerve number 10. So there are 5 basic taste sensations. The first one is sweet, sour, bitter, salty, and the 5th one is the umami receptor. Now, the sweet receptors respond to sugar and anything sweet, which is carbohydrates and some amino acids. The sour receptors respond to acidic substances with higher concentration of H+ ions. And then the bitter receptors respond to alkaloids. Salty receptors respond to metal ions like sodium and chloride. And umami receptors respond to amino acid glutamate, so the beefy taste of meat. So if you look at these, you see the sweet taste buds right at the tip of the tongue, and salty is present at the edges. Now the sour regions are present at the sides, and then you have the bitter taste buds that are present all the way to the back of the tongue. So when you actually swallow a medicine and it gets stuck at the back of the tongue is when you actually feel the bitter taste. If you put the medicine right at the tip of the tongue, you really don't feel it that much until the time it dissolves with saliva. Now the last taste area is umami. Now umami is the area on the tongue where you can taste, beefy MSG like flavor. So right over here, which is almost all of the tongue, you find the umami taste. So it's basically a blend of taste. Now the taste and smell are more acute at birth, and they decrease sensitivity after the age of 40 as we deteriorate the olfactory and gustatory receptors. But the other special senses, they are formed early in embryonic development, and these special senses can be disrupted by infections during pregnancy. So when the mother gets infected in the early stages of pregnancy, it can cause abnormalities in the special senses. Now vision is the one that develops until later, which is about 8 or 9 years of age, because of an infant when it's born has poor visual acuity, so it cannot see very far. An infant or a newborn lacks color vision and depth perception, but their sense of taste and smell are really acute right at birth. And then as we get older, we start having vision problems. the lacrimal glands become less active. We start having dryness of eyes, and then we have old vision, which is presbyopia, which causes difficulty to focus on close vision. And the muscles around the eye also become less efficient. So these are some developmental aspects of special senses. But a newborn can hear sounds. By the toddler stage, the child is listening critically to intimate sounds. But again, as we go older, we start deteriorating our hearing abilities as well. So with this, we covered all the main topics in special senses, and on Monday, we'll start with the lab of special senses.